Welcome back to the Knit Crowd as well as Yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we're going to learn how to do the Trinity stitch that appears in this Afghan. There are other projects available on Yarnspirations.com where this stitch does appear for knitters. Now you'll see that it's a puffed up look. It looks like pebbles popping. It's got a lot of texture. It's really not hard to do, and it's consisting of 4 rows that go back and forth, and so you have to repeat the 4 rows over and over and over to get the look. So when you really truly look at it, you'll notice that the puffs are not just sitting on top of each other, but they're also diagonal, so they're kind of puzzling together, which gives you the Trinity stitch. So in one, the puffs all appear together, and then in the next one the puffs then appear in between those, and then etc, etc. So it's a repeating of 4 rows in order to do it. So let's talk about the tricks, and in the more information on this video I'll provide the written instructions for this, and then you'll see how it's done as well here in today's tutorial. To start and do the Trinity stitch, what happens is that you need a total of an even count number here. So it's working in actually sets of 2. So you got 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So it can be any number as long as it's an even number. It could be 20, 22, 24, etc. So if you wanted to do a large size Afghan with this, as long as it's an even number, you're good to go. So just make sure that the knitting needles complement the yarn that you're using. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to cover the 4 rows that make the Trinity stitch in order to happen. So I've just done a straight cast on right here. It was with a twist, and we have tutorials available on how to cast on at this time. So the very first row, row number 1, all we're just going to do is that we are going to purl. Okay, so every other row is just a straight purl across. So this is row number 1. So coming up from the front, wrapping it back out to the back, slide off. So we're just going to purl our way across the top. You don't need to worry about counting anything on this particular row. So rows 1 and 3 are just simply purling. So it's going to be rows 2 and 4 that have the work to make the Trinity stitch pop, just like you see. So we're just going to purl my way across, you know, kind of minding my own business and etc, and just keeping myself all happy with my knitting needles. So if you're learning how to knit with me, this is I'm working my way through a process of learning how to knit, and the best way to do it is just take it all in baby steps and look at projects where the stitches are something unique and you can learn as you go. But the best way to do it is practice as well. So I've just purled my way all the way across, and I'm turning my knitting needles, and I'm getting ready for row number 2. So row number 2 is going to be repeated every time we hit row number 2. So let's show you how to do that. So let's begin row number 2. So this happens every time we hit row number 2. So row number 2, the very first one, we're just going to knit. So we're always going to start off, and we're always going to knit the very first one and always the very last one. Okay, so the ones in between are going to get the Trinity idea that we're going to do. So the first one, let's just knit. So coming in, and we're going to do our knit stitch and do it and slide off. So the next one is going to be knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, all within the same loop that you see. So let's begin. So to do that, we just go into the same loop. Okay, so we're going to knit and see where the strand is. See, it's on the back side. So if it was on the front, then you would know it was a purl. So it's a knit, so we're just going to wrap around and pull through. Now technically what we normally do in knitting is that we slide that off and over and we're done with it. But because it's a knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 all in the same, we don't slide off. So to do the purl then in the same stitch is that we rotate this yarn up over top of the needle like so, and we go into that same stitch again. So just manipulate the needle and go into that same stitch to do a purl. So just now purl. Okay, but you're not done with this yet. We still have to knit. So okay, so it's knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 all in the same one. So move this yarn backward behind the needle and then go in as if you're going to knit as regular and knit. We're going to show this again in the future. Don't worry if you didn't catch it. So now that you have all 3 of these all now done within this one, you are done that stitch. You can safely slide off. So the next 3 stitches that you run into, okay, are going to be a purl stitch. Okay, and you're going to purl those 3 together. So to do that, move the yarn forward before you do that, and what we want to do then is that we want to go in, but not just 1 for a purl, not just 2, but go into all 3, and it does get tight, so watch your tension. You may not get your needles all the way through, it's okay, and just get into all 3, wrap that yarn for a purl and pop it out the back, and those 3 just became one stitch in the back. Once you get that done, just slide off. Okay, so that's your easy one. So 3 just became 1. So the next one is knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 again. So move this yarn backward to begin your knitting. So knit, okay, come around from the back and move it forward, but do not slide off. We now have to purl that same one, so use this yarn, come forward, okay, come forward, and going into that same stitch you want to purl and pop that out the back, and then you have to knit into that same one, so move that yarn back and going into that same stitch again, purl, or sorry, gonna knit. So those 3 are now part of that one, and once you have those 3 done, slide off. So the next 3 are going to be purl. So you just continue that all the way down your row until you run out of stitches. So the next 3 are going to be purl, so just move the yarn forward first and catching all 3 of those, so not just 1, 2, do all 3, and then just wrap that and purl in behind, just like that. Okay, once you get that done, just slide off all these, and the very final stitch, like I promised you in the very beginning, is just a knit. So move that yarn back behind the needle and just knit into that last one. So that was row number 2, just like you see. So you don't really see too much of the pattern happening yet, but it's gonna start popping out, creating those pebbles looks that you see. Let's move on to row number 3. So now that my needles are turned, I'm gonna do row number 3. So it's just like row number 1, it's just a straight purl. So coming in and you want to purl. You don't have to count anything, it's just every stitch is gonna get a purl. So this is what's gonna separate those pebbles from each other, or the Trinity stitches that you're doing, in order to create the look that you see within the project. So this row number 3 is just a straight purl all the way down. So you don't need to count anything, just continue to do it. So you kind of get a mental break from counting when you can do this every other row. So every other row, don't forget, is just a straight purl. You'll notice that in this pattern all the pebbles will pop out one side of it, so it's a one-sided piece when you're going to work on it. So just purling all the way down and then right into that last one. So that was row number 3. Let's turn our needles and go for row number 4. So row number 4, just like that row number 2, the first one is always gonna be a knit. So knit that one and then we get started. So row number 4, instead of doing the knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 all in the first one, we start immediately in row number 4 with purling the first 3 together. So just move that yarn forward first before you do that, and then just go in the first 3 stitches and collect them to do your purl. So purl those first 3 together. So that's the difference. So what this is doing is it's offsetting those pebble looks to give you the look that you saw in the Afghan earlier. Okay, so you're gonna do that. So you're gonna purl those 3 together. So the next one is going to be your knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 all in the same one. So move this strand back. So going into the next one, knit. Okay. Okay, you're not done, so move this yarn forward. You're then gonna purl into the same one, and then again move this strand back and knit finally into that same one. So you've just now created 3 stitches from one again, and that's creating those pebble looks. So once you get all 3 done, slide off. So the next one, just like before, is going to be purling. So move that yarn forward. You just got to get in the habit of moving that yarn around. So just going in, pulling it through, so you're doing a purl. I just want to get it in a little bit tight. The tension can be quite tight because you're going in 3 stitches at one time, but it's not a deal breaker by any stretch. So you're gonna do that and you're gonna slide all 3 off. The next one is gonna be a knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 together. So move this yarn in behind again. So you're gonna knit. Okay, do not slide off. Move the yarn forward. You're going to purl. Okay, and then move the yarn back and knit all in the same one. Now that you got all 3 done, slide off, and the very final stitch, so you're just gonna keep repeating that, but the very final stitch is just gonna be a knit. So let's just quickly review on what we've learned today. So let's just turn our knitting needles here, and we're going to begin once again. So the next one would be just purl. So every other row is just a purl as you go across, and then you start again with then row number 2, and then you do the number 3 is just a straight purl, and then row number 4, and then you start all over again. So it's really not a hard concept, and you can see that these pebbles are starting to pop. It just takes a few rows in order for you to see the concept actually come out, but it's really quite fabulous when it does so. Okay, so this is row number 1 all over again. I'm just straight purling, so you don't have to count. As you can tell, I'm just talking to you without counting, like that. So once you're done, turn it. So then row number 2, if you look back on the pattern, row number 2 has you starting off. So remember the very first stitch when you're doing these is going to be a knit. So knit the first. So in row number 2 then the next one is going to be a knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. So let's just start that. So we're going to knit. Okay, move that yarn forward. You're going to purl. Okay, and then you're gonna knit. So move that yarn back and knit. Just like that. Okay, the next 3 they're gonna be a purl together, so move that yarn forward first, going into all 3 around and purl those together. Okay, shift those off. The next one, shift that yarn back then is to start the next one, so it's knit. Move that yarn forward, you're gonna purl, and then move the yarn back and knit. It gets easier when you get more yarn on your, or more project on your knitting needles. Once you get all 3 done, slide it. Okay, the next one is gonna be a purl, 3 together, so put these 3 together. Pop out the back. So those kind of just are your saving grace for less stitches. Okay, get those out, and then the very final stitch is going to be your knit. So then the next one is just a straight purl, and then you're gonna do row number 4. But let's take a look at our work at this time. Is that you can see that the pebbles are really starting to pop on this, and it's really kind of a neat concept. So you see that when we started here we had 2 pebbles here. These 2 pebbles just kind of sat in between, and then you can see that they're just kind of puzzling together. So until next time, I'm Mikey on behalf of the Knit Crowd as well as Yarnspirations.com. Have a great day. We'll see you again real soon. Bye bye.